Experts disagree on the subject of how much punishment and how much reward is necessary to motivate behavioral change. It's a subject that gets discussed with regard to raising children, training pets, and managing employees. So how much should we punish and how much should we reward? Well, it's going to be a difficult call to make that requires every situation to be taken on its own merit. But one of the reasons why people resort to punishment is because they don't really believe that rewards will produce positive results. Now, this is not a new science. We've been studying it for many, many years, and still there's a reluctance to believe that rewards can actually change behavior. So that may be true of you. It's possible that you're in need of some reinforcement, some convincing when it comes to the subject of how effective rewards can really be. Now, in that regard, looking into the world of training orcas, killer whales, to perform in public can be very insightful. Now, before we start, this is not an endorsement of keeping large mammals as pets, and this is definitely not a how-to train video, because this will not result in a trained killer whale. But the simplified version of what happens is worth considering, because here's the truth. At the end of training, promoters are able to sell out arenas. And at least at one time, it was a very popular attraction. People would come and they would pay to watch these huge, beautiful creatures behave and carry out their routines on command. And they had to be able to do it every single time, not ever faltering. So let's just briefly consider what happens when you're training a sea creature like that. An oversimplistic version of what happens is the following. An untrained whale is brought into a large aquarium and they're fed regular meals, so they always are healthy and strong. So there's no deprival, no starvation, and definitely no shock treatments to get them to learn behaviors. The entire process is all done by rewarding the behaviors that the trainers want to have repeated. So remember, what gets rewarded gets repeated. And it's very evident in training these beautiful creatures to perform. So what happens early on is that a cable is laid out across the bottom of the pool, maybe about the center point, so that the whale can swim all the way to one end and then swim back, take its body over the cable that's been put on the bottom of the aquarium, and then swim all the way to the other end. And if it stays at one end, nothing happens. But when it brings its entire body length across the cable, then there's a reward. Maybe a bucket of the favorite fish that whale just loves to eat. And so the whale notices, oh, I got rewarded. There was a reaction from the trainers when I swam across the cable. Now, even though they're extremely intelligent creatures, they might not realize what just happened. They might go back near the cable. And near the cable does not produce the reward, because the behavior that wants to be rewarded is bringing their entire body across the cable. So when that happens again, another reward. But very quickly, the requirements for the reward are elevated. And in this case, it's a literal elevation. Now, the cable, instead of being laid across the bottom, is now brought up to the middle of the water space, making it possible for the whale to swim under and over. So again, if it stays at one end, no reward. And if it swims under, takes its whole body length under that cable, there's no reward. The only behavior that they want to reinforce at this particular point is bringing its entire body above that cable. And so when the whale takes its entire body length across above the cable, now there's a bucket of fish, a reward. And it may take a little while to cement this behavior. Swims underneath, no fish. stays at one end, no fish. Swims over, and there's a reward, a bucket full of tasty fish. Now, just as a reminder, there's no punishment. The whale can take weeks to associate the behavior and the reward, and it gets regular meals, it gets regular interaction with the trainers. It just doesn't get the special reward that it has come to crave until it swims above the cable. Now, the stakes are raised again, and literally the cable is brought all the way to the surface level of the aquarium. So now the whale swims all around underneath the water, back and forth, and no reward, no special bucket of tasty fish, until one day, and this could be weeks later, one day the whale comes out of the water and brings its entire body over the cable and goes back into the water. And that's the behavior they want. So guess what? 3 buckets, 4 buckets full of that tasty reward. A great celebration. And from that point forward, the only way to get the reward is for the whale to take its entire body out of the water. Well, as time goes on, it's important to increase the requirements for the reward. So at a certain point, instead of just doing it randomly whenever it wants to, now it needs to do it when a whistle is blown. So an audible signal triggers the behavior, and that's when the whale takes its body out of the water over the cable. So again, if it leaps out of the water at one end of the pool, no reward. If it does it when there's no signal, no reward. But when the signal is blown, whistle, and the whale takes itself over the cable and goes back into the water, that's when the reward. And it's well cemented with positive reinforcement. So again, just to emphasize, there's no punishment. Stabbing it with a spear or shocking it with a probe. The only way this behavior is being cemented is to wait until the behavior occurs, and now wait till it happens on signal, and then reward it to cement it. Eventually that cable ends up being brought way up out of the water. So now the whale has to jump quite a ways and go back into the water. And again, in order to get the reward, it has to do it on command. So when that final behavior of coming way out of the water and going over the cable on command, when that happens, there is a big celebration and a tremendous reward. Again, this is an oversimplification. Don't try this at home. But it should raise our confidence in the idea that an intelligent creature can have new behaviors cemented without punishment, only by rewarding the positive. Now, humans are even more intelligent, more sophisticated, more complex. There's times when humans do need negative consequences for bad behavior. So it's not to say that all behavioral change can be brought about by positive reinforcement. But what it should do is give us confidence in the extreme capability that is present with positive reinforcement. You see, those stadiums, those arenas that are sold out are counting on that whale being able to do that behavior on command every single time without fail. So with that kind of potential, let's take a second look. Let's rethink our balance in the use of punishment and rewards as we deal with people, whether it's our children, our friends, or our subordinates in the work environment. Let's use positive reinforcement to its full potential.